And we are live, folks. Looking at 193 angstroms view of the sun. We see very low solar activity. Solar minimum continues with a 10.7 centimeter radial flux of 66. Also, we see earthquakes in the U.S. and some interesting news stories to get to. So we're going to give you 1 minute of lead time, and then we'll be right back. So tell your friends and your foes to join the live stream, or if they're already watching one, to leave that live stream and join ours. Again, 1 minute of lead time. Be right back. We're going to look at some more views of the sun here, folks, and cover a bunch of stuff at a pretty breakneck pace. We'll look at the 48-hour view at 304 angstroms. See some minor filamentary activity going on there, especially on the northwestern limb, as we did see yesterday. Otherwise, once again, folks, very, very low levels of activity. And let's look at magnetic lines here. I believe the 335 angstroms view is working well. And frankly, the North Pole coronal hole looks gigantic. So we see a lot of open lines up there. And I don't want to get too into magnetohydrodynamics here, as it gets complicated quick. So let's just move on to the magnetosphere movies after we look at the solar wind. So we see an ongoing 150-degree phi angle here, just kind of steady. Again, we see earthquakes in the U.S., in Kansas, and a 5.6 off of Petrolia, California. So if you weren't aware, now you know. So solar wind density is at 3.47, quite low conditions there. And 330 kilometers per second the wind speed, so very low solar wind. Again, the measure of the outer corona, the 10.7 centimeter radial flux, also showing incredibly low at 66 solar flux units. Here's the density. You see this low density coming in from the left, and you see the little high density bubble there. You could call it the plasmasphere, the outer plasmasphere. Please note, new viewers, that high density is blue on this University of Michigan geospace model. High density is blue, low density is white. Here's the pressure map, the pressure model. And we see we have a magnetosphere, but it's pretty weak, not exceedingly weak. About what you would expect in the current solar wind conditions. And we let these play through every day to get 4 hours of data archived. So if you want to see previous magnetosphere movies, just tune into one of our old videos. You'll see it around the same time of day. And again, 4 hours worth. So there are the timestamps. Here's the ground perturbations here. These are changes in the Earth's B field. So geospace delta B, that means changes in the B field. The main ones are located over Canada, as we typically see, and we also see the typical evidence of the South Pole meandering into the southern Indian Ocean and another North Pole over Siberia. If you weren't aware, it's true, folks, it's true. We'd prefer not to be reporting it, but we are reporting it. So there you have it. So thanks, patrons. We're up to 6 now. We do post some public stuff on Patreon also, so check out patreon.com/smAsho. You may see some stuff you would not have otherwise seen. as we have to put some exclusive content up and keep the channel going. So in order to do that, help facilitate it by checking out our Spaced Out campaign. Also, links in the description to this. It's our Hemp Lucid campaign specifically for our Spaced Out viewers. So check out the CBD products there, as purchasing them through Hemp Lucid will help us support the channel. Also help support the bike team by visiting the bike shop, which is theveloshop.net. And if you're a prepper, I suggest you have a bicycle in your arsenal. And one of the good choices is to go with a single speed bike, such as this ultra high quality Nature Boy disc. It's got disc brakes and no shifting parts. This thing will go for a lot of distance before requiring any maintenance. So perhaps that would be something to look into. It also takes different wheel sizes. It takes 700C wheels as well as 650B mountain bike wheels because it has large frame and fork clearances. So it's super versatile, and that's what you want in a prepping bike. Also, thanks donors who've made anonymous donations. Please keep sending emails regarding producer list, as those who donate to the channel can be on a producer list. We're going to run credits one way or another during these videos. Also, check out the links to the SoundClick and SoundCloud pages also in the description. Let's move on to more stuff. Again, 10.7 centimeter radio flux, a measure of the outermost corona all the way down to 66, which is legit solar minimum conditions. Still above predicted values for the end of cycle 24. However, very low, about as low as it gets, as the sun limbos around 66 solar flux units. Now we see noctilucent clouds all over the place, including over Paris. Usually we only see these at very high latitudes near the poles, but due to extra moisture in the mesosphere, we're seeing them all over the world. So as far south as Italy, check out spaceweather.com for the best noctilucent cloud photos, that is. Looking at spaceweathernews.com, we see an utterly flatlined X-ray flux. Magnetometer's looking a little odd there. We'll see what's going on the Gong 2, and it's probably some bunched up plasma, as that's typically what causes these sort of weak readings here. KP index is just off of 0, back up to 1, so very low solar activity. I can't stress it enough. It's a real solar minimum. As the heat latency in the oceans takes 2 years to catch up to solar activity. In other words, folks, you can't measure the temperature of the planet by measuring the atmosphere. You got to measure the water. We see a very low electron flux, which is kind of surprising, as we're having an electron shortage. There's no charging hazards or anything like that. Ionosphere is fairly highly discharged, especially on the nighttime side, located in red, where the F2 layer becomes the F layer. If you're trying to communicate with shortwave radio there, you're effed, because there's no F2 layer. There's just an F layer. Here's the aurora forecasts. Nothing to write home about there. How about the Space Weather Enthusiast dashboard? We'll just look at the LASCO C3, the more zoomed out coronagraph on Soho. We don't expect to see any activity here, as there were no flares or coronal mass ejections that I'm aware of. Here's a synoptic map showing the 2 coronal holes, and I think this one is failing to show part of that North Pole coronal hole. We're going to look closer at that at 94 angstroms at the end of the video, so stay tuned for that. Here's the Gong 2 stuff, and as expected, we see bunched up plasma, which is the current force line. If you look at this orange line here, let me zoom in on that. The orange line going from Earth into this dense plasma environment right here. We see a coronal hole coming up on the rising eastern portion of the sun there too, because you can see a little bit of a coronal dip there. So that's going to be the activity to expect to see, is a coronal hole rising the next day. We're going to skip stereo A entirely as there's nothing going on. And here's the planet locations. Thanks again for tuning in, Milky Way Galaxy team. And thanks for tuning into the Smash stream, Smash team. Good morning, good afternoon, good whatever it is, wherever you are. Cheers. Thanks for leaving a comment. Here's where the stuff will be in 1 week. Approaching new moon and approaching the Saturn conjunction. Head to in-the-sky.org to create your own sky map to see what's happening above your head. Wouldn't you like to know? You can draw in all kinds of stuff, including the galactic plane, if you like, where you can see how it differs from the ecliptic. I would note that Deneb is right on the galactic plane, and if you think that's a coincidence, I'm going to cover some serious cosmology in a later video, as we don't want these to be too long. We apologize for them being 50 minutes long the last couple of days, but there was a lot of stories. There were a lot of stories, folks, a lot of stories. Anyway, if you're up before dawn, you should see the moon and Saturn and Jupiter dominating the night sky, making for quite good viewing of our local bright objects. Jupiter being the fourth brightest object in the sky after only the sun, the moon, and Venus. Here's the Apatity neutron monitor, and we do see an uptick here in the last day. Also an ongoing uptick at Barentsburg. Let's look at Athens. We'll also check out Mexico City, Moscow, and Oulu. And a couple of Antarctican monitors. Here's Athens, Greece. Nothing special going on there. How about Mexico City? Uptick there in the past day. So cosmic ray increase, folks. Those of you not aware, cosmic rays do affect human health. So when we see a KP of 0, a KP index of 0 is bad for your health, just like a KP index of 7 or above, but for a different reason. We do see an inversely proportional relationship between solar activity and cosmic ray flux. So when the solar activity goes down, the cosmic ray flux goes up. This cycle is almost inversely proportional to the sunspot cycle, and that's not a coincidence either, folks. And I'm not going to get into why, because again, we want the videos to last only a certain amount of time. So see an uptick in cosmic ray flux at Oulu in the past day. DOMC is flat, and DOMB, the other Antarctican monitor, also flat. So let's continue on. Our social media plugs. Follow us on Twitter if it makes it easier for you to share these videos. Follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/MashoMash. Instagram.com/MashoMash. You can see some more private stuff and some cycling things that have nothing to do with space weather, such as this one.
Oh, man. One of the best descents in the Lehigh Valley right here. In between the Lehigh Parkway and Queen City Airport. There's the municipal equipment shed. And here's the descent. A winding series of snake turns. Leave a comment, Instagram viewers. And don't forget to cast a long shadow.
Don't forget to cast a long shadow, folks. Also follow us on Gab, our latest foray into social media, one which I will actually start to use once I get the logins from smAsho staff. Shout out smAsho staff. I got to put up stuff. Thanks for viewing on YouTube. YouTube viewers. Follow us also on Minds. Social media that will not censor you. And check it out. I just made a post while doing a live video. How do you like that? Minds.com/SmAshoMash. And please press like and subscribe under this video as we keep losing subscribers each day. Another 2 since yesterday. Cheers. Whoever unsubscribed, up yours, even though you won't be seeing this video because you won't subscribe. So check it out. We see a 5.6 off of California, pretty close to the coast. Leave a comment if you felt that quake. That's a big enough quake to cause some damage. Also a 2.5 in Tennessee there. So little northern New Madrid action, perhaps. And a 4.5 in Kansas. Another quake in the US on the list. Not something you see every day there. What say you, folks? Did you feel a quake? Earthquake uptick in the US. Shout out, Americans. 5.0 off of the coast of Oregon. So we see more activity there at 5.2, 5.4s. Is that the Cascadia fault zone about to let loose, folks? Let's hope not. At least those aren't deep quakes. All appearing to be around 10 kilometers, except for that one in Kansas. Let us know if you think a supervolcano is opening in Kansas. Hint, it's not. Also, 4.2 off of Oregon, so a rare addition to the list. Several quakes above a 4 magnitude in the U.S. Again, 2 5.4s off the coast of Oregon, as well as a 4.5 in Kansas, 5.0 off the coast of Oregon. Here's a 5.3 in China. So we see an uptick in quakes in weird places, folks. 4.6 off the coast of Japan there, for some reason showing as Russia, closer to Japan. Whatever, it's a 4.6 at depth, so heads up there for a larger quake at the surface. Here's a deep quake at the Philippines. Heads up there for a larger quake at the surface. Also a nearly 600-kilometer deep quake at Fiji. So the rocking has not completed, folks, and with this low level of solar activity and a coronal hole rising, you are in a massive, massive earthquake warning. If you live in an earthquake-prone zone, have a plan. Try to be an asset, not a liability, when buildings start to fall. And be prepared for which ones will fall. As you know, you can predict it. Here's a 5.0 at Vanuatu. Here's a 4.1 at New Zealand on the island. Shout out New Zealanders. Check it out. We haven't seen one on the island for quite a while there. Man, oh man. That's a real earthquake uptick, folks. 4.3 at Japan. 4.8 at Puerto Madero. 4.1 at Japan. 5.6. There's a larger quake in the same spot at Mexico. 4.9 in that rift zone. We've been seeing multiple quakes there, including a 7+ magnitude in the ocean north of New Zealand, slightly northeast, I'll say. 4.9 at Tonga, 4.9 at China. And there you go, the largest quake in ages there in California. Leave a comment if you felt that one. Actually on land, check it out. Near the King Range National Conservation Area. Shout out Petrolia. Looks like it's a small series of ridges right there. Doesn't look very populated, but that's a pretty big shake map. So anyway, let us know if you felt that quake. Please leave a comment if so. And lastly, a 5.3 out in that ocean rift zone. Let's show that again, as we've been the most major quakes on Earth have been there. And here's where we've been seeing 7+ magnitude quakes and everything from 5s to 7s. Many quakes right in that zone. Let me show you the regional information map. I'm not going to try to mess with that. Anyway, that's the location of that. And I don't know what I've brought up now. I've opened a can of worms, so I'm going to bypass this. There we go. Here's the pressure maps. We're not going to really play through this because of time constraints. Anyway, there's the pressure situation. High pressure shown in red here and low pressure shown in white, such as down here. Very powerful low pressure here in the North Atlantic. Don't get on a boat with Mark Wahlberg and George Clooney out there, as you may see a drowning hunk. And that's not what you want to see. Here's a U.S. Doppler radar as the central U.S. gets flooded even more. And I'm not even going to get into it. I'm going to show you the whole water vapor map here. We were calling that food prices were going to rise in February. If you weren't aware, we typically report stuff so early on this channel that by the time your actual mainstream news reports it, it's incoherent. If you weren't aware, it's true. It's true. Did I quote Kurt Angle again? Oh my goodness, what is going on here? Anyway, there's the water vapor map, courtesy of the NASA GOES interactive weather satellites. If you don't have links to these on your desktop, well, what are you waiting for? I would note the jet stream is dipping down right over my head, and it's cold in Pennsylvania. I guess let's zoom in on this convergence zone as it looks super violent once again. Sorry to say it, but if you're in the crosshairs of this water vapor, which is the hot pink portions, it's clear that southern Iowa and northeastern Michigan, northeastern Missouri just got plastered with rain. As when the water vapor vanishes like that, there's only one place where it could have gone, folks, and that's onto the ground. So leave a comment if you're flooded, and we hope things dry out for you when your crops grow. It's obvious that crops are massively delayed here in Pennsylvania. The corn will not be as high as the elephant's eye on the 4th of July. It'll be at an elephant's knee level, if it's lucky. Anyway, shout out to Springfield, Missouri. You are in the crosshairs. And there may not be thunder rolling in yet, as there is at Harrison. But if you're in Harrison, get ready for some heavy rumbles, because that is flat enough to funnel those sounds into your town. Anyway, check out volcanoes. Explosive activity continues at Chivaluch with a 13,000-foot plume. Rikoke, which just suddenly started exploding, producing a 43,000-foot plume 2 days ago, still doing so. And considering how far north that is a stratospheric level eruption. So that's at least 3 stratospheric level eruptions just in 2019, folks. And also Sabancaya has upticked as well. Explosive activity continues there. So seismic and volcanic activity, simultaneous uptick. And that is an ass. And that is a hole in the ground, which is the latest section that I've written, where we do stuff like define terms like silicon, which is a tetravalent nonmetallic element that occurs combined as the most abundant element next to oxygen in the Earth's crust, and is used especially in ferrosilicon for steel making, in other alloys, and in semiconductors. Dear
Silicon
Valley, comma, aka Big Tech, comma, you will not break the internet, period. If you try to break the internet will break you. Figure that into your shareholders' interests, as your stock price will continue to plummet unless you fix your crappy behavior. Google, Apple, Facebook, and Twitter, you are on notice. Links in the description to this Zero Hedge article about Google's bias, which we've been complaining about publicly since 2016, when we noticed that they were interfering with the election back then. So if you're still using Google as a verb, you should shut your face. And if you're still using Google as a search engine, you should grow a brain, because it's not objective at all. And it hasn't been objective since 2011, when Eric Schmidt publicly admitted that they were shadow banning search results. So if you're still Googling things, I highly recommend that you use this thing called DuckDuckGo, which is a legit search engine, unlike Google, which is an illegitimate political hack search engine, much like George Stephanopoulos is to reporters. By the way, he used to work for the Clinton campaign. If you like to watch George Stephanopoulos, please watch his show and tell me he doesn't have a complete political hack bias. Anyway, check out DuckDuckGo, who will not store your personal information. It won't follow you around with ads. It won't track you, even out of private browsing mode. And most importantly, it will leave objective search results instead of the kind of crap that you get if you use crap companies, such as certain ones with names that we won't mention. So transcribe that, Google. UFOs over Kansas turn out to be DARPA balloons. Links in the description to that article as well. Trump delays mass deportation raids and seeks deals with Democrats. Do you care? Anyway, it turns out that the mass deportation was just another bargaining chip Trump used, as opposed to making a real threat of doing stuff. Again, not that I care. Let's look at two charts. Here's silver, which has just experienced some support here at $15.50. Here's the 1 year chart, by the way, folks. Now, of course, it's not 14 bucks like it was back here when we were saying buy it. But Peter Schiff seems to think there's some upside potential in silver. Anyway, there's the silver chart. Now look at the gold chart. What do you think of that? Anyway, gold is at a 6-year high right now. Let's look at silver again. There's silver, and there's gold. Silver, gold. See the difference? You notice any upside potential there, folks? You're welcome. Berks County, Pennsylvania flooding. This news station's pretty close to home. And Pennsylvania's hammered, crops are delayed, and it's cold and windy. So welcome to summer 2019. It's cold and wet, just like spring 2019. The second late spring in a row. John Bolton demands that the Middle Eastern nation of Iran immediately retaliate in self-defense against the existential threat posed by America's military operations. John Bolton called for a forceful Iranian response Friday, continuing U.S. aggression. Iran cannot sit idly by as American imperialist machines encroach on their territory, threaten their sovereignty, and endanger their very way of life, said Bolton. Just kidding, folks. It's an Onion article. Anyway, back to solar activity. It's super low, and you're back to 66 for the 10.7 centimeter radio flux. Let's look at some transients. This cosmology section brought to you by the smAsho channel. The channel that covers stuff so early that it's incoherent by the time it appears on your local news. Here are the emissions from the core of your local galaxy, known as Sagittarius A star, referred to as some by a, quote, supermassive black hole, end quote. It's supermassive, but it's not dark. Anyway, it emits radio, and there are some actually X-ray emissions. Let's look at some other transients here. How about Cygnus X1? Another massive radio source located within the galaxy. We see it has upticked in the past 2 weeks. Let's look at Cygnus X3 while we're at it. Otherwise known as Deneb, the tail of the swan, and the North Celestial Pole at the other end of the precessional cycle. We see it has also upticked in the past 2 weeks. Let's look at Cygnus A, the massive radio galaxy, otherwise known as 3C405.0, a really catchy name for the second strongest radio source in the entire sky. Located at about 530 million light years, Cygnus A is a great galaxy to look up. If you want to see a very interesting radio galaxy with jets that we're looking right perpendicular to, look up Cygnus A. Again, the second strongest radio source in the sky, second only to the sun. I don't know if you're aware of that, but it's also the truth. Also look at the Vela Pulsar as a control group here, because it's not located in the constellation of Cygnus. But we also see an uptick in the activity from Vela Pulsar. I'm not going to comment on why it is, because we can't give you every answer on these videos until we're getting paid a lot of money to tell you these sort of things. So sadly, we'll have to wait to divulge some information until the next video. Here's 48 hours of solar activity at 94 angstroms. And thanks again for tuning in, folks. If you're going to leave a comment, do it soon, because we are out of here in about 2 minutes. How about another track while I try to get through the comments? How about fresher than Bangladesh? This is a pretty old track, folks. I don't know if you could even download this one. You might be able to hear it on SoundCloud. I'm not sure. It sounds like a mess. I'm sure there are other plugins you can use to translate when you're using DuckDuckGo instead of Google to search. But for God's sake, stop using Google as a verb. Oh, when I hear people say that, it makes me cringe. It makes me want to go live in a cave for a few years until people stop using Google as a verb. It's got to go, folks. It's got to get out of the vernacular. It's terrible. It is a web search, okay? I don't care if you call a Band-Aid an adhesive bandage or a Band-Aid, or a Q-tip a cotton swab or a Q-tip. Stop calling a web search a Google. It's terrible. It makes my ears bleed. Hi, Google it, which means get a totally unobjective, politically hack-based search engine to come up with a bunch of web pages that are paid by their shakedown program of making you pay $350 to get your websites, quote, properly listed. Yes, Google will shake you down for money, by the way. They did it to me, and they pay us nothing for this YouTube channel, so support it via the links in the description. And we're bleeding subscribers, and we don't really care, because fake news will die. Fake news will die, folks. And big tech will not break the internet because there's people that are too smart preventing that. So you're on notice, big tech. You won't break the internet, but the internet might break you. Anyway, we are out. So thanks again for tuning in. Thanks for staring at the sun. And when you're doing so, make sure you don't drink. But if you do drink, don't drive. And stare at the sun anyway. And since it'll never be now again, may the solar wind be at your back and the atherosclerosis absent from your veins.